Well, hello and everybody, and welcome to a Monday edition of Bayou Bets for October the 3rd. Gloomy in some parts of the country, happy elsewhere. Zach Ewing's coming home, so he's probably pretty happy, I guess, about now. But how are you gentlemen doing this afternoon?
I'm pretty tired, man. I'm sorry, Spencer.
No, go ahead, Zach.
They say the way to deal with jet lag is to not think about what time it is in the other place, but you can't help it. And I got up at 5:45 London time this morning, which is 11:45 last night here. It's been a long day already. So,
well, jet lag, schmet lag. What are the Saints going to have this week? That's the question, Spencer.
Yeah, at least you're not Will Lutz and still having to relive that double doink because, man, that was just, oh, my, I still can't believe that happened. I mean, it's just the fact that he made the 60-yarder to tie it at 25. Then they send him out again. Damn near makes another one, a 61 to tie it again, but it's just
he had a chance to make history because I can tell you that making a 60-yarder and a 61-yarder in the final 2 minutes of the game or whatever it was would have been NFL history. And that to me, that's way more impressive than making 165-yarder or whatever. So we'll get into all that in a minute. We want to first tell you, as we always do, that the first bet is on us. Use code NOLA full at Caesar Sportsbook. If you've not signed up, you can get as much as $1,250 back as a free bet if you don't win. That means if you bet you make your first bet up to $1,250, $100, $200, whatever it is, you get that back if you don't win your first bet using code NOLAFULL. Also, don't forget, cash in with Carville segment every Thursday. Subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, and you can watch Zach and James Carville. And that is always an interesting segment and certainly worth watching. And then, as always, don't forget our newsletter in your inbox every morning. Us three do the best job we can to keep you informed on all the stuff that's going on involving your favorite bets. All right, let's get this show rolling. And already Uncle Big Nick wants to chime in. He wants to know if he can rip up his Saints win 15 ticket. Well, I mean, I know you're not a math genius, Uncle Big Nick, but if you subtract 3 from 17, you get 14. So
that ticket is confetti.
That is right. So the most you can possibly win is 14. So if you bet the alternate win line at 15, you are toast. We are glad to take any of your comments this afternoon, comments or questions. I don't know if we'll have the answers, but we'll sure give it our darndest. Gentlemen, let's get started. Zach, you were in London yesterday. We were at home waking up wondering why we woke up for the first quarter. And then Saints decided to show up. And show up they did and made it an exciting game out of it. But still, 28-25 Vikings. The Saints are now 1-3. They do cover the 4. It's actually 4.5, I think, right before kickoff. Over 45.5. That also hit. It was a weird game.
It was. It was a really fun game to watch. Great atmosphere in London. I was telling you guys off air that Rod Walker and I were walking around Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before the game. It took us like 20 minutes to find somebody wearing a jersey of all 32 NFL teams. So there were a lot of Vikings fans, even more Saints fans, but there's just a lot of just NFL fans in London who go to these games because they only have a chance to see 2 or 3 games a year. Packers and Giants play there next week, and then there's a game at Wembley Stadium later in the month. Stadiums, I mean, I don't know that I'm exaggerating when I say it might be the best stadium in the world right now. It's brand new. It's only a couple years old. It's described as the best soccer stadium in Europe, which makes it one of the best stadiums in the world. Just fantastic amenities. Sight lines are great everywhere. The weather was great. So it was a really good time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought the Saints played really well outside of 2 fumbles and a couple of untimely penalties. And I know,
well, they played pretty pitiful in the first quarter.
Somebody in the comments will chime in and say, well, these calls were terrible, and the NFL has that. And the hands to the face call on Tyrann Mathieu, which changes the game, was abysmal. That was a phantom call. I mean, let's just say what it is. Other than that, they're 50-50 calls that go against the Saints. But if you don't call that, it's 4th down for the Vikings. They have to probably punt in that situation. The Saints have a chance to run out the clock. and we never even get Will Lutz's 60-yard field goal attempts. Would have been less fun, but the Saints might be 2-2 right now.
Well, it's brutal because you're right that the phantom hands to the face call changed the game. And I'm not, I've been talking and commentating, doing shows on the Saints for off and on, off and on for the past 7 years. And, other than the no call, that was probably the most egregious. And I blame refs rarely ever. The no call and this one, and I'm sure there's been a couple others here and there. The point I made attitude this morning, Spencer, was if you play and if you show up before the second quarter, there's a good chance that a call like that doesn't kill you for the game. I mean, had they played their best football, they played like they played the final three quarters, that may not have been the factor that killed the Saints.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Yeah, I just don't get why they always start off horrendously. Yeah, they've been very consistent in the first quarter this year, consistently terrible. I mean, have they even scored a point in the first quarter? I mean, I don't even remember if
they did in the Tampa game.
Field goal. Scored, I think they got a field goal. Yeah, I mean, it's 3 points in 4 first quarters. I mean, that's just it's ridiculous. So they're gonna definitely have to get better on that front, which I think this coming week, which I know we'll get to that later, I think this coming week presents a good opportunity to start strong against the Seattle defense that was really bad, been pretty bad this year. But just back to this week, just a really heartbreaking way for it to end because they had the 2 fumbles, turnovers once again, biting them in the butt. So I'd say the 2 biggest issues were outside of the refs were of course, the turnovers and the bad start.
There's no question about it. And you can blame the refs, you can blame whatever you want. I don't know who people are blaming this morning because I got to be honest, I just can't do it. I can't read social media, Zach. I tried. I put my stuff up and I got off quickly, but it doesn't shed the light. It doesn't take away from the fact that the Saints still are beating themselves, and you can blame whoever you want, but the Saints had their plenty of chances, didn't show up early. I almost turned it off. It was so bad, but they came to life, and Andy Dalton played fairly well. I thought Latavius Murray was outstanding. I thought the offensive line, for the most part, played better. The play calling was better, but you got to find a way to win games like that.
Yeah, I mean, one more point about the penalty, and I don't mean to harp on it, but I do think, why is a penalty like that not subject to review, just like a 12 men on the field? I mean, I have to go back and look at the replay more carefully. Tyrann Mathieu swears he didn't even touch him. And if that's the case, if you can tell on video.
It was in his chest.
Okay, if he doesn't touch his face, it can't be illegal. I mean, that is the definition of clear and convincing evidence. It can't be illegal hands to the face if he never touches his face. So why can't we review that? Anyway, I don't mean to harp on that because, again, if Deontay Hardy doesn't fumble the punt, if they cover the fake punt better, if Andy Dalton doesn't try to do too much late in the first half and gift the Vikings a field goal. I mean, there's a lot of things the same. If the first quarter,
they don't whiff Alexander Madison.
Yeah, I mean, something.
Justin Jefferson, man, it's just completely
the Alexander Madison thing. There were 4 guys there to tackle Madison.
Yeah.
The Vikings were willing to settle for a field goal there, and he somehow gets through all of them. So, it's an NFL game. There's 1,000 what-ifs you can play with every NFL game. And unfortunately for the Saints, they just haven't been answering enough of them in the affirmative. But I will say this. I know we need to talk about next week's game. It's week 5. It's a must-win. If you're going to make the playoffs, if you're going to stay in the playoff race, you have to win this game.
Yeah, and I will say, I know a lot of people either A, didn't listen to attitude, judging by the numbers so far, or B, didn't agree with some of what I said, but I didn't listen because they thought I was just going to be super Derry down. I actually feel better about the Saints today than I did last week at this time. They did show up finally. They've got to figure out a way to start stronger. But I said during the week, all week, and I'll stick to it, they needed to show up, win or lose, and they showed up. They played, to me, one of the better teams in the NFC for sure, in the Minnesota Vikings, certainly one of the better offenses. So if they can play like they played yesterday and start figuring out ways to get things together, then they should be able to beat Seattle, which leads us into that. And I agree, it is a must-win. And they actually have some games. The next 4 games, Actually, the next 5 games, 4 of them are at home. And of the next 4 games, all 4 are against teams that are either 2-2 or worse. So the Saints have a chance to make their move now, and they need to do it. And it starts with the Seattle Seahawks, who put up a score origami yesterday, 48-45 over the Detroit Lions in a crazy, just insane game where you want to talk about bad defenses. There was no defense at Ford Field yesterday because they decided not to show up. And Lions played pretty decent offense. Geno Smith has been good again, but I think if you get to him, guys, we'll start with you, Spencer. He can be had.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he carved up the Lions, but as we know, the Lions are one of the worst defenses they've been. I think the Lions have the most points out of any team this season, yet they're 1-3 because their defense is so bad. So that tells you what you need to know about that. So, yeah, Geno Smith's not that great. I mean, he's played a lot better than people were thinking. A lot of people just wrote him off as being garbage, but he's shown that he's capable of being a starter. A lot of people just, he's a career backup. He's not going to do anything, but he's been better than I was thinking, honestly. So you can't take him for granted, kind of like Mariota, a guy that a lot of people had written off and ended up, Mariota gave the Saints fit. So I'm hoping hopefully it's not another case of that, but Geno's definitely not someone to take too lightly. So I think, though, the matchup's good because I feel like the Saints.
Yeah, last year the Saints played. I'm sorry, Spencer. Last year the Saints played him, and he opened up like an 80-some-odd-yard touchdown pass, and then he disappeared. Yeah, and I think the Saints won it like 13-10 or something like that on a Monday night. Zach, I'm not impressed with Geno Smith. I know I get that to put up 48 points in the NFL, you have to be doing something right. But I think it was just a fluke game. I think the Seahawks would go back to being the Seahawks. I will say this: they have an awful offensive line, and I think Geno's in the bottom 6 or 7 of quarterbacks, but they have a decent running game. Rashad Penny looked pretty good yesterday, and there's no question. Obviously, we know their receiving core is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, one factor is the Lions' defense is completely awful.
And they were
everybody that they've faced has run for 100+ yards on them. So Seahawks took advantage of that. Obviously, I am a little surprised. This line opened at 4.5, and is moving up, which you usually don't see for teams coming back from London.
Last week.
Okay, so
it was 6 last week.
I think it opened at 4 yesterday and has been bet up to 5.5. Teams returning from London, when they don't get the bye, can struggle, but that may be mitigated a bit. Seattle's got to go to Detroit. I don't know if they're staying out here, but then back home and then back out here, and so a lot of travel for them as well. I don't. Who do you guys think plays quarterback for the Saints? That's sort of question number one.
I think if Jameis is healthy enough, Jameis plays. Plain and simple. I know what a majority of the social media geniuses want, but they're not going to get it. If Jameis Winston is healthy, Jameis Winston not only will play, but should play. He's the starter quarterback for this team. And Andy Dalton played satisfactory. I'll give him that. I don't think he did anything special. He didn't do anything bad except for hold the ball too long a couple times and fumble. But no, I'm not going to – any quarterback can do that. I mean, I think, again, Andy Dalton is one of the top 3 or 4 backups in the NFL. There's no question. And it's if you're a Saints fan, you got to be glad to have him. But it's Jameis's job, and if he's healthy, he plays. Yeah,
I'm thinking for this week that Dalton's going to play because just from the judging from the injury report, Jameis had 3 different kind of injuries. I mean, he's just been so banged up to where I'm thinking that they let Jameis rest up one more week, play Dalton against Seattle, and then hopefully Jameis will be ready for week 6 in what could end up a shootout against Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
I think that's most likely, Zach. I agree with Spencer that I say if Jameis is healthy, but I also think that if he's not ready to go and in another week like that, coming back from London is no different than going to London. You got to come back on that long plane ride. It's not going to be good for his back. So, Zach, it's probably a good idea to answer your question to probably let him rest again and have him as healthy as possible for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I will say this, having been around a little closer to the team in the past few days, going to press conferences, talking to our Saints beat writers who are around the team, I think there's a certain faction of the Saints, the players, the coaching staff, who have lost confidence in Jameis Winston. I do. Now, that's not to say he can't get it back. That's not to say he'll never start again. But there was sort of an air of confidence that Andy Dalton was starting. And I don't know, and is that injury or is that Jameis consistently made reads, plays? I mean, timing routes yesterday, I thought Dalton was much better at timing routes than Jameis had been. Jameis is holding on to the ball for too long. So I don't know. I mean, yes, you want to get Jameis healthy. Maybe that's an excuse now to see how Dalton can do.
One thing I will say about yesterday is I do think that the play calling was different. I think Carmichael may feel more comfortable with Dalton because Dalton can't throw the long passes like Jameis can, and he was less inclined to try to throw the super deep pass, which I think has been a detriment to the Saints so far. I think it's kind of like when you buy a new car and you've been used to Drew Brees for the last, however many years, not last year because there was a hodgepodge of quarterbacks, so last year didn't even count. So coming from Drew Brees to now, you get Jameis Winston who can throw a 60, 65-yard pass. You're like, let me test this Corvette out and see if it can go 120. So you want to try it, and I think they tried to force some of those things, and they didn't work. And so I think he was kind of back to the basics and throwing the 15, 20-yard pass, and Dalton is definitely better than that at that. So it's gonna be interesting if Carmichael does feel better with Dalton in there. Maybe they use this as an excuse. We'll find out. We're gonna get back to the Saints at the end of the show. We'll spend the last couple minutes talking about the Saints, but want to move on. There is one more game left in Week 4, and it's an interesting one. And guys, I'm interested to get your take on this. Rams 49ers. The Niners are a 2-point favorite, slight favorite in the money line as well. Over under 42.5. This to me is an interesting game. I think the 49ers are a better team, but I'm not sure the way they've been playing has been pretty bad. I took this in my picks column. I took the Niners very small. It's not one of my best bets in any shape or fashion. I like the Niners here, but not a lot and not enough to bet a lot of money on. I just, I don't think you can trust them. The 49ers had the Rams number, Spencer, as of late, except in that NFC Championship game that they basically gave away. But which team are we going to see? Because if we see the one that played in Denver last week, it's not going to be very pretty.
Right. Yeah, I think I also like the under in this one because I feel like it could potentially be an ugly game. But I definitely like the 49ers to win this one and cover because I just feel like their defense will be able to make up for their struggles on offense. So they've Trent Williams, their left tackle's hurt. Elijah Mitchell's hurt. Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo's having to start. They've got a lot of issues on offense, but they've still got some playmakers there. Debo, Ayuk, George Kittle's back. So I feel like they've got enough on offense where as long as they don't turn it over, I mean, they'd have beat Denver last week if it wasn't for the 3 turnovers. So I feel like as long as they don't turn it over, they'll win this one. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm laughing because it goes to, and I talk about this every now and then. There's some guys I really respect, and they in the betting world, and they do fantastic. And they've got 85% of their analysis is fantastic, but they like to bring up what the score should have been if you take out turnovers and blah. I don't know how they figure out real score, whatever they call it, real score. But Zach, turnovers are a part of the game. I mean, if the Saints wouldn't have committed 2 turnovers yesterday, if the Saints would have done that, I'm not a fan of using that as an excuse. I agree with Spencer. If they don't make those turnovers, they win the game. But turnovers aren't random. They aren't random. There's history to turnovers, and you can see throughout the course of a game, depending on who's in there. I guarantee you Uncle Big Nick will tell you with Jimmy Garoppolo in there that turnovers aren't random.
I mean, they're not totally random, no, but they are the of all statistics, they're the one that can turn around the fastest, right? Because, sometimes an interception is a tipped ball or a defensive back might drop it. A fumble could bounce back to you or it could not. There's a lot of factors there that are really beyond anyone's control. They're just straight up luck. And that's not really the case with, average yards per rush, right? Like that, there's a lot of skill involved in that. How good is your offensive line? How good is your running back? How good is the defense you're facing? All these things. Turnovers, there's not to say that they're totally random, but there is a little bit more of the luck involved, and they can turn around fast. I think that's actually, speaking of the Saints, that's their hope, is that some of these turnovers are just, what if that ball bounces back to Deontay Hardy? Andy Dalton tried to reach out and grab that fumble, almost got it, couldn't quite get it. you're talking about really minute things that don't go your way. And so as far as Monday night, I feel a little bit differently than you. I think the Rams are the better roster, but they've got a 49ers problem. Like, McVay does not do well against this defense, never has. 49ers are at home. I'm taking the Niners tonight. It's a big game, though. NFC West title could be on the line tonight.
I agree wholeheartedly. And so, again, I'm going to take the Niners, but I'm going to take them small. I don't love it. I'm with Spencer. If I had to play a total, by the way, I'm 40-22 this season on totals. I'm just saying.
Damn.
I mean, that's a pretty good record. Maybe I ought to do more best bets with my best bet's been doing well. Maybe I should just do all totals. Maybe I have a total column, and then I'll screw it up after that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I did really well at week one. I usually pick all the totals just for fun. The week one, I did really good, but like the past few weeks, I've been about 500.
Well, Uncle Big Nick is chiming in. I'm not even sure. He stop writing these long comments.
It's similar to what I'm saying. I mean, turnovers. Yes, you can make a mistake and it could cause a turnover. The other team can make the same mistake and the ball harmlessly falls to the turf. Like, it's not. It's a little bit like in baseball when you hit the ball hard but right at people. You can't always control it. You just keep hitting the ball hard.
Well, I do want to move on and have a recap of last week. And while I got Zach Ewing dead tired and just not knowing what he's talking about out of his head, I've been waiting to talk about this one all day long. Bills and Ravens. Zach, I know you've been in London. Did you hear Mr. Harbaugh's press conference yesterday?
I did not. What did Jim have to say? John.
It comes to the end of the game there. They got a 4th down. They can kick a field goal and take the lead. And he starts talking, spewing analytics. And how did those analytics work out for the Baltimore Ravens yesterday? Well, they didn't. They covered. Great for them if you bet on Baltimore. That's wonderful. But if you're in the Ravens locker room or you're wearing purple and whatever other color they might wear there, black and purple, I'm not going to call them purple and gold because that's not what they are. They were wearing alternate jerseys yesterday. But you're not happy. Kick the damn field goal. I don't care if you got Lamar Jackson.
Results-based analysis.
Exactly, and they lost.
You cannot base your analysis purely on the result. You have to play the percentages. If they get it, they win the game.
Over and over and over again. Happening over and over.
If they kick the field goal, they're still less than 50-50 to win that game.
Let me just
the Bills get the ball back. They go to overtime. They're still less than 50-50 to win that game. So,
who's the last analytics coach that won a Super Bowl?
I mean, it depends on what you consider an analytics coach.
Who's a guy that's using an analytics card in his hand, and Sean McVay's not one of them. Who's a guy using analytics and has used that as a reasoning for doing anything and has won a Super Bowl? Andy Reid doesn't use analytics. No way does he use. You don't remember the big fight they had last week when they decided to let the clock run out before halftime? And good old Pat Mahomes wanted to keep going, and Andy Reid played it safe. He doesn't use analytics. He uses common sense. You can't find one. There isn't one. Throw that crap in the garbage can. It's no good. It's no good.
Are we sure McVay is not one? Or I'm
positive McVay isn't one.
Yeah, I also think a lot of the analytics stuff, like, it also depends on confidence in your kicker, like how confident are you. Like, I know a lot of coaches but I was about to say that in this case, I'd probably side more on the side of the kick because you've got the best kicker in the NFL.
If you kick the field goal, you are still less than 50-50 to win that game. It doesn't help you that much. It doesn't help you that much. You're telling me that if the Ravens kick the field goal, they're better than 50-50 to win that. How do you figure that?
Because
they would be tied. Buffalo would have the last possession.
No, they take a lead late in the game. It was 20-20. Buffalo went down and kicked the field goal and won the game.
You're right. But so Buffalo still gets the last possession.
Take the damn lead and count on your defense to stop them from at worst. If you're that damn good,
go to overtime.
Exactly.
And then at that point, you go to overtime and you 50-50. hope you win the toss with
There-
Lamar
there's
Jackson.
this
You cannot convince me that it's less than 50-50 where they would have
I
won
know
the
I
football
can't
game.
convince you of anything, but there's this whole
Oh, actually,
attitude.
you can.
There's this whole attitude of like, hey,
That's
you have
funny.
to keep the game alive as long as possible. You have to keep the game alive. You have to try to play for open. No, what Jim Morris say? You play to win the game.
Right. And if you kick a field goal, you have a better than 50-50 chance of winning the game.
If you score a touchdown, you have like an 80% chance to win the game.
I think it also depends on if it's the Seattle-Detroit game where they're going up and down the field, scoring touchdowns all day long, then I'm probably with you. It's a scenario thing. Stop using the analytics card to make your decision is my point. My point is it depends on game scenario and who you're playing and what the score is and how your defense did that day. It's not about a DD card. I almost said a really bad word on it.
I will say this. I will say that I don't think this was a clear-cut case, but I don't think it was indefensible that the Ravens went for it. I thought it was.
I don't have a problem. No, I'm not saying it was completely out of line. I'm not saying it was a ridiculous call. I don't have a problem with the call per se at the time. My point is, and we go through this often, is these coaches that use this card and don't go by what they have seen throughout the course of a game, they're morons. You're never going to win a Super Bowl like that. Brandon Staley's never going to win a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh, he chokes. He chokes.
John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl.
Well, it's because Colin Kaepernick was on the other side.
Oh, God.
Ask
Colin
Uncle
Kaepernick carried them to that Super Bowl.
All right, let's move on.
I want to ask
let's
one other
talk
question.
about that.
You don't have it on here, but the Cowboy, Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I used
did Dak Prescott get Wally pipped? Like, is he going to start when he comes back?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's gonna start. He makes so much money. Like it's like Jameis with the Jameis Dalton thing.
Exactly.
Jameis doesn't make that much money. Where Prescott, I feel like makes enough money to where they can't kick him out. I don't.
You got to win the game, right? If Cooper, I don't know, man.
Like the Saints went 5-1 with Teddy Bridgewater.
Did you bring some of those
They didn't kick
back
Drew Brees out. So
I'm
not saying Dak Prescott's Drew Brees, but he's in an upper echelon QB, right? You can't just sit him.
I think your dad has a point here, Spence. Thinks he should have kicked the field goal, but it does definitely shows.
Yeah, their secondary is pretty bad. So, but they were actually containing Josh Allen in that game. It's not like Josh Allen ripped them to shreds.
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't like that Chiefs Bills game from last playoffs where it was just touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Well, I think the Ravens have a bigger problem than analytics anyway. When they've now played 2 home games and they let a 21-point lead slide to the Dolphins and now let a 20-point lead slide to the Bills. So they let in 2 games let a combined 41 points in leads, and they're 0-2 at home. That is
they're becoming the league's notorious choke artists ever since the second half of last season. They are like on pace to be the #1 seed, and they end up choking or they've missed the playoffs completely. So they're definitely going to have to work on their stretch play because if they keep blowing leads like that, it doesn't matter what Lamar Jackson does.
No. And look, I've never been one to – I think Lamar Jackson – and when I say overrated, don't take it the wrong way. He's a great quarterback. So, but when I'm talking about overrated, I don't think he's league MVP candidate, even though he has won one, and that was BS, by the way. That's a whole nother story. But Lamar Jackson
that season.
No, hold on. Lamar Jackson has played. I think he's played very well this season, and he has no help. I mean, his best receiver really is. Well, Mark Andrews is probably his best receiver. Devin Duvernay is like the second best receiver.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman, but none of them are that great.
Okay, I mean, J.K.
He's
Dobbins
better than Duvernay. Come on,
Oof, bad.
It's pretty bad.
They're bad. They need help. Their defense isn't very good. So, anyway, we're gonna. There are a couple other games real quick. I do want to touch on. How about them Tennessee Titans? Y'all keep giving me hell about the Tennessee Titans. Y'all still think Jacksonville's going to win the division? You still think Jacksonville's the best team in the division, Zach Ewing? Unmute yourself.
I'm not. I'm not sold on Tennessee.
I'm not either.
I will say that the Colts are much worse than I thought. I'm very disappointed.
They're bad.
They're not good.
Bad. They're not good. But the Titans are. The Titans are 2-2 with a win over a bad Colts team and a win over a bad Raiders team.
Did we end up betting that Tennessee would beat? What did we bet? I gotta write this down. We bet something.
I can't even remember. We were going to bet on whether they would beat Jacksonville twice, but they play them so late in the year.
Yeah, well, look, I think we should just bet that if Tennessee wins the division, then y'all both owe me something. Because they're both even odd. They were about the same going into the week. In fact, Jacksonville was I don't know what it is today, but going into the week, Jacksonville was plus 220 to win the division, and Tennessee was plus 300. So not looking at it, and I realistically have no idea. You guys can take Jacksonville. I'll take Tennessee, and if either of the other two wins, it's a push.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I still think Jacksonville's going to win the division. And I know you're gonna get on me for this one, Jim, but I mean the Trevor Lawrence, the 5 turnovers, that's not gonna be a normal thing. I mean the 4 fumbles, I know it looks so ugly, and it was very ugly
yesterday.
But
Second
interception. Yep, I saw that.
I did that one just for you.
Current AFC South odds, guys. Your favorite at Caesars is the Jacksonville Jaguars at plus 165. Tennessee and Indianapolis both plus 190.
Okay, well, there you go. You're getting a bargain.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it even money. Yeah, because
here's the thing with Jacksonville. Even with all those turnovers, they almost covered against Philadelphia, the supposed best team in the NFC. So that makes me feel even better about the Jags.
Here's what I think about the Jags. I used Philadelphia as one of my remaining knockout picks yesterday. That's how sure I was. And even when it was 14-0, I'm like, well, that's not going to last. It was in the rain and in the muck, in the mire.
Yeah, Lawrence. I mean, that definitely played a part in all those turnovers.
I know we got to move on to college, but one more question I have:
Go for it.
Do you guys are the Eagles the NFC favorites at this point in your eyes? They're the only undefeated team left. I don't think they are, but
I don't think they're the best team in their division. So,
well, that one's close, but I don't. I would still take. I guess the Bucks or the. I don't. The NFC.
Yeah, the NFC is not good. That's why
it's there for the taking.
Saints win Sunday, the Saints could easily still make the playoffs because the NFC is that bad. The NFC has no powerhouse teams really. I mean, if the Eagles were in the AFC, they'd be the 4 seed at best. But because they're in the NFC, they might end up number 1 because the conference stinks.
And that was kind of my pointed attitude this morning. After. It's easy to have initial reactions and say like last week and, me saying they're going to get their beeps kicked right after last week's loss to Carolina. And then you start to analyze things and you're like, well, if they show up and then they showed up and I feel better about it because, I mean, if you look at the standings, there are 2 2-2 teams and 2 1-3 teams. The Saints are one of the 1-3 teams. They beat one of the 2-2 teams and should have beat the other one and get to play them again. So, it's certainly up for grabs. By no means is this don't tear up your division tickets because the Saints can still make the playoffs. And honestly, would anyone be shocked if 8-9 won this division? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
This division's terrible. Tampa Bay got exposed last night. They couldn't keep up with the Chiefs.
Tampa Bay's not good.
The Saints were like
wrong, Brady.
But by the time the season started, they were plus 380 or something to win the division. But in the spring, you could get them at plus 500.
Yeah.
And they're only plus 600 now. I mean, it's not like they're out of it.
Bargain. Bargain city.
Despite the bad start. So,
real quick, I just want to touch on one other game I thought was phenomenal. And I told everybody to stay away from the Packers in knockout pool. I had a bad feeling. Look, they ended up winning, but they didn't win by much. They needed every ounce of overtime to win that game. When you put Bill Belichick's back against the wall, I thought that was interesting. So are the Packers as good as we thought they were? I think maybe just Tampa Bay isn't as good as we thought they were. So any performance you get against Tampa Bay is kind of skewed.
The Packers still have special teams problems.
Yeah.
Because I did have Green Bay in my big knockout pool because I felt terrible about every pick I could have made. I'd already used the Chargers, which is the one I liked. So I took Green Bay and hung on by a thread, but like every time they punted or kicked off, the Patriots had a big return. They gave up field position. That was their problem in the playoffs the last couple of years. They have not solved that problem.
All right, we got about 10 minutes left in the show, and we still got 6 slides left to show. So let's get started. And real quickly, LSU on the plains against the Auburn Tigers, and what a comeback for LSU. Never gave up, down 17-0, and then scored 21 straight points to finish the game. Guys, I thought LSU showed a lot of moxie. I still don't. That we talked about how that spread was kind of ridiculous at 8. Spencer, I'll start with you, but the fact that LSU was able to come back, win that game, I still don't think they're a great team, and we're going to get to next week's spread in a minute because I don't understand that line at all. But I'll tell you, I was impressed by LSU and Brian Kelly and the resolve.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely fight hard for Kelly. I feel like he's showing that he's was the right man for the job. I mean, the Lincoln Riley, they couldn't get him, and so Kelly was solid plan B, and they've held their own. It wasn't pretty by any means. They didn't cover like I was thinking, so it's kind of disappointing, but a win's a win, and they got it done. And I think coming into this week, they should play much better being back at home, and they're going to have to because they get a formidable opponent there in Tennessee.
No doubt about that. Zach, real quick, their defense banged up, but still did a really good job.
Yeah,
I know Auburn's
offense
offense
is solid.
It is, and Zach, even though Auburn's offense might be one of the worst in the SEC, if not the worst, and I mean they've upped them around Vanderbilt territory, you still have to be impressed with the way LSU shut them down when they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest.
I know you were sleeping for a lot of that game.
Yeah, I watched some of the replay and some of the highlights. I didn't see the game live, but looking at the box score, looking at some of the replay, I think it's the worst game LSU's played all year.
It wasn't great,
and they won. It's good news. They won. I mean, that's good. Wins count. And they're 4-1. They're in the top 25 now. I thought even against Florida State, they played much better in the second half than they did. Auburn's not very good.
No.
But it was a win they needed, and they got it. Now, the Tennessee game, I'm curious because you mentioned the spread, and let's dive into that. Like,
that's insane.
It opened.
It makes no sense.
It's flipped past the key number of 3.
It ought to be 7.
Just 2.5 now. This is what I'll say. Tennessee has a tendency under Josh Heupel, and he was like this at UCF, and he was the offensive coordinator at Missouri before, and Missouri was like this as well. If they play bad teams, bad defenses, they'll run up 50, 60 points on them. They'll play good defense. It's a lot more difficult, and they also have a lot more trouble on the road. Their one road game this year so far was at Pitt, and Pitt's good, but they're not. I don't think they're any better than LSU. And Tennessee needed overtime to win that game. So I think I might pick LSU. I haven't decided for sure yet, but I think this is a spot where LSU surprises them.
I'm going to say this before I get to Spencer. I have made 20 big bucks picks this year. All 20 have been on the NFL. If this line stays 2.5, Tennessee is going to be in there unless I'm with Aunt Mabel. I got to go check the tickets, but I don't understand this line at all. Not at all.
And Nick, to answer your question, I don't think Florida does have very good defense. Florida should have lost to South Florida.
No.
I don't think they do. So Tennessee rolled up points against them. Not impressed.
I think this line should be 6 or 7. That's how far. I mean, Spencer, what's your take on it? I think it's 3-4 points off.
Yeah, well, this is one to me. It's like I'm not touching it, honestly, because I could see it being where Tennessee, if they can really get that offense home, and they could blow them out. But I could also see it being, like Zach said, with Heupel, them struggling coming to Death Valley. So I feel like 3 is about right for this because I don't trust Tennessee. I don't have enough confidence in them to be confident in them covering. If I had to pick, I guess at 2.5, I'd lean them. But honestly, this is one that I'd probably just stay away from.
Yeah, I wish I'd gotten it at 3.5. I would have taken LSU plus 3.5, but I was out of.
Yeah, I'd feel better. That's probably what would flip it for me. If it goes
I
to
don't
3.5, I'd lean LSU.
Right,
I think it's gonna be a close game.
Other results in Tulane. What a job they did.
Woo!
I mean, third string quarterback to beat Houston. Justin Ibieta gets hurt in the first drive, and third string quarterback Horton hears a hoo. He hears a hooty hoo because the Wave win it 27-24, and Ole Miss overrated. Go ahead,
yeah, Kentucky covered. Let's go.
Ole Miss is going to win 10 games. I mean, I guess that's if they're overrated, they're going to win 10 games.
You want to bet on that? I mean, we could just bet on all kinds of stuff. I'll just take all kinds. You'll owe me sandwiches until like Easter.
Okay. You think you're going to win all of them, huh? I guess that's why you're betting.
Yeah, I do. I mean, no, I think I'm gonna lose this one. I mean, I wouldn't. Anything else?
I'll point out here.
Go ahead.
Bryce Young hurt, which could turn the SEC race on its head. Now they say it's just a sprained shoulder, and he'll be back. And then the other one is Oklahoma. Woof. Well, I mean, what?
Oof.
What the hell?
Oof.
Yeah, I put that one on there. I was shocked by that. And maybe TCU's just that good, or maybe Oklahoma's just that bad. I couldn't believe that. It's 31 point game. That's
TCU plays Kansas
wild.
This week, 5-0 against 5-0.
I don't care who you play. You lose by
Big
31.
12. Big 12's good this year. I could make a case the Big 12's better than the Big 10.
All right. Whoops. I'm losing my show here. All right. Before we move on to Big Bucks and finish up the show, I'm not a Cardinals fan at all. We know this. Anybody who's listened to me at all knows who I root for, and it's certainly not the Cardinals. It's another team in that division whose nickname starts with a C. Major shout out to Pujols, 702 home runs, ties Babe Ruth for second all time with 2,214 RBIs. I'm not taking anything away from the man, but I don't know what they've been putting in Pujols' body, what kind of food he's been eating, what kind of drink he's been drinking. Maybe he got some kind of Babe Ruth recipe, but you don't just come from nowhere.
Hot dogs and beer, baby. Hot dogs.
You don't exactly. His gut looks like mine. And the dude is he's Uncle Big Nick. He's 76 years old. I mean, we don't even know how old he really is. He stunk up the joint for like the last 2 years. And all of a sudden he's like slamming him like he's back in 28 years old again. What the hell is Zach doing?
He's doing it all against lefties. So that's one thing. Is like, I think he figured out that if he sits on certain pitches against lefties, he still has damage. He's not doing anything against righties. Anyway, the other team in that division that starts with a C, the only thing I can think of is Crew. Brew Crew? Is that?
No.
Am I wrong there? Oh.
You're just trying to piss me off now. You're doing a damn good job.
Did it work?
I mean, really, don't go there. I mean, but all kudos to him. I think what Pujols has done, Spencer, is every time he comes up to bat, he pretends like Brad Lidge is on the mound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he had that moonshot against the lead. At the
still hadn't landed.
LCS. Yeah, it still hadn't landed. Yeah, that was insane.
They're trying to break up the asteroid with Pujols' shot off of Brad Lidge. I think it's still moving in that direction. They may do that. All right, time to move on. Big Bucks. All right, it depends on how you look at this. I mean, Spencer won the week with money, but if you put the same amount of money on all my picks, you're not betting the same thing I'm betting. I mean, I'm 4-1 for the second time this year, 4-1, but I only won $16, and it's hard to believe I'm 14-6 against the spread, and I'm still treading water. You know why? Because all my damn
top play.
You should start putting the same money on all of them.
No, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna do them like I usually do, and then whatever my best bet is, I'm gonna move that down. But I'm not gonna figure out what it is until afterwards. And Zach Ewing bringing up the rear. He's doing his Derry 2021 invitation there, kind of stinking up the joint.
You know what's weird? I am doing the Derry 2021 because I'm winning the Carville picks. I didn't have a very good week this week in Carville either, but I'm winning the Carville picks, and I can't get my big bucks right to save my life. So
yeah, it was like I think 99 and 50 something in Carville against the spread, but I couldn't get big bucks right to save my life. Maybe I was intimidated by Devin Jackson.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my best Devin Jackson impression.
Yeah, there you go. You are.
Bucks, so
you're doing a good job with it so far. All right, let's look ahead real quick. We just got a couple minutes left. College football this weekend, Arkansas, Mississippi State. I find that an interesting line. I am not a believer. I think Mississippi State's good, but I think Arkansas is better than anyone gives them credit for. I think the line's a little weird.
Why? Why do you think Arkansas sucks? I mean, they don't suck, but they're not. They
got blown up by Alabama.
They're going to be like 7. They lost to Texas A&M. Texas A&M's awful.
Oh, you putting that on the Carville card this week?
What, Arkansas, Mississippi State? I haven't decided yet.
Okay, well
TCU, Kansas will be on there.
Please. Oh, of course it will. I mean, come on, man. This is Louisiana.
That's where game day is. They're both 5-0.
We don't care here about TCU and Kansas.
Okay, I'll just do SEC games all the time then. Nothing else.
I mean,
they don't really have any good SEC games this week.
No, they really don't, because Texas A&M is going to get their butts whooped. I don't care if Bryce Young plays or not. Texas A&M isn't very good. I was way wrong on them.
The best SEC game is LSU Tennessee. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's true.
So why is that game at 11? That's that's weird.
Yeah, that's
I don't understand why. So CBS has the doubleheader this week. Makes sense that they would take A&M Alabama because of the storylines. I don't get Auburn Georgia. Who's going to watch that game? Auburn Georgia, 2:30 game of the week.
I mean, I got to give props to your Mizzou boys. They look. I know they faded in the
Georgia
end.
scared there.
Should have won the game.
I would not want to play Georgia this week. I'll just say that.
Auburn.
I could be wrong.
They're in for it.
I'm still thinking Georgia. That Georgia might not be quite as good as we're thinking.
But Auburn's not good either.
Yeah,
Georgia. That's going to be a spanking.
I'm not saying they're going to. Yeah. Not expecting any upset there. I think Georgia will lose a game or two this year. I don't see them going undefeated.
I think Georgia's minus 28.5, and I will lay the 28.5. I'm with Nick. Georgia is going to annihilate Auburn.
I'm going to bet that will be I will at least put money on that for sure. And I still think Georgia's the best team in the country. I still think Georgia wins the national championship, but we got a little ways to go. We got plenty of time to talk about that. And lastly, before we wrap the show, we talk about the NFL in Week 5. The Packers are going to London. I think the announcing crew are staying in London. I believe that is the case. And so they get to spend another week there. Colts Broncos on Thursday night. That's another one I don't get. I know the Colts are bad, but the Broncos are badder. And I know that's bad grammar. I'm just trying to be funny. The Broncos are bad. I mean, Russell Wilson, and I said this a few weeks ago, and at some point this season, you're going to say, you were right, Jim Derry. Russell Wilson's done. If he's not done, then something's going on that we don't know about. He's got Tiger Woods syndrome. I don't know where Tiger just kind of disappeared when maybe he's got woman problems. I don't know what the deal is. He is not right. He doesn't look good. Bucks Falcons. That could be an interesting game. Bucks an 8-point favorite. 2-2 against 2-2 in the division. Falcons gave them a run for their money last year before Matt Ryan kind of fizzled out, and I think the Bucks ended up covering in Tampa ended up being like a 17-point spread. That was a really tight game for much of that game last year in Tampa Bay. Cowboys Rams minus 4.5. The Rams shouldn't be giving anybody 4.5, but we'll look at that again. Ravens, they're going to play ticked off, or are they going to feel sorry for themselves? Because they're definitely a better football team than the Bengals. We'll find out. And the Chiefs Raiders next Monday night. All those interesting games. There are a lot of, I think it's an easier week, Zach, for knockout picks because I did the early lines. There are 6 games where the spread is 7 or larger next week.
Yeah, and if you haven't taken the Bills yet, that's the sure thing. They're 14-point favorites against Pittsburgh. But
they lost to Pittsburgh last year.
I actually think I might take Tampa Bay because the Falcons coming off that big win. Tampa Bay and a loss. Tampa Bay's not losing that game, are they?
Yeah, they own Atlanta under Tom Brady. They're 4-0, covered every spread. They own Atlanta.
One of those games.
And the Saints were 4-0 against Tampa.
One of those games was late in the year, and Brady didn't even play, and Blaine Gabbert threw for like 300 yards.
That's what I was saying. Atlanta, I just don't. They don't have no answers. I think Brady's going to call.
I think Atlanta kind of spent a lot of energy as a big win. It's hard to follow up a win like that in the NFL when you're not that good of a team. In fact, they've won 2 in a row now. I think I may take Tampa.
I'll look at it. Start looking at it tomorrow. But Wednesday's my big analysis day. I think I'm leaning Atlanta right now. I just don't think Tampa Bay is very good. I thought don't.
Atlanta was you said they were one of the worst teams in the worst team in the league.
Look,
Saints might win the division then.
Tampa Bay is
everyone's bad.
I agree with you.
In the NFC, everyone's bad. But think about Atlanta for a second, because they're 2-2. They won at Seattle, which is not super impressive, but it's a road win. They beat the Browns, not bad. They should have beat the Saints. And by the way, they were getting blown out by the Rams, but then they came back and put a scare in the Rams.
They're 4-0 against the spread.
I am one to go back. I'm not going to be right about every team. I think I'm wrong about Philadelphia Eagles. I think they were overrated going into the season. I think they're better than I thought they were. I don't think they're great, but I think they're better than I thought they were. Atlanta's kind of in the same boat, and it's not because of Mariota. I think when you go into a game like they did yesterday, and it didn't shut down Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but they were effective against those two guys. And I thought they played pretty well against the run yesterday, and I didn't think they would at all. So they showed me a lot in that game yesterday, and they showed a lot of moxie in finding a way to win. I mean, of course, we all root for Atlanta to lose because that's who we are. It's in our blood, not in yours, Zach, but it's what I grew up with and what we know. But you got to give them credit. They're playing pretty good football. When you go through 4 weeks, I think you have a true sample size, and Atlanta is not near as bad as I thought they were. And I wish I would have put some money to win. What was there? It was 4.5 over under. I wish I would have put money.
Might have been 5.5, but yeah, they'll win 6.
They're certainly going to go over that. I mean, they're better than they're clearly better than Carolina. Another team I was wrong about. I thought Carolina would be much better, and I didn't. I don't know
Mayfield.
I don't know. It's not just Baker, and he's terrible. But I don't know why I decided to bet on Matt Rule. He might be the worst coach in the NFL.
He's horrible. He'll get fired probably mid-season.
He's horrendous.
You know the stat I saw about Matt Rule? He is now 1-26 after yesterday when giving up more than 17 points. 17 points is not that many.
That's horrible. That's horrendous.
1-26.
All right, really quickly, you got 15 seconds to give me final thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Spencer.
All right, yeah, this unfortunate fantasy news and real life news. Javonte Williams out for the year with a torn ACL. Just goes to show how unreliable these running backs are. I wish I'd have drafted more receivers early because, man, these running backs can't stay healthy.
I got Melvin Gordon. Zach Ewing.
Incredible experience in London. It's no wonder the NFL keeps going back there. I don't think you quite get that until you're there. Unfortunate loss for the Saints. I think the Saints, if you look at their next 6 games, though, they're going to be favored in 4 of them, and another one that'll be close to a pick 'em. So I think this season is not over yet.
I agree. I think the season is not over, but if you lose this week, it is over. So they have to come out, and I got to be honest. I think they not only need to beat Seattle, but they need to beat them handily, and they need to have something to feel good about themselves with Cincinnati coming into town the week after that. Because if you don't feel good about yourselves and having a nail biter against Seattle is not going to help you. So that's where we are, and I think that's where the Saints need to be. Talked about it on Datitude this morning. We will be back. Uncle Big Nick and I will have Datitude on Thursday morning. We will be back here for Bayou Bets on Thursday afternoon, and then Friday, the 100th episode of Datitude, a special episode. We're going to have a Dunk and Holder reunion. It's going to be a fun party, and we're going to spend a lot of time roasting Larry Holder, and I can't wait to do that. So,
and Fantasy Roundup tomorrow as well.
Fantasy Roundup. Forgot about Fantasy Roundup tomorrow, where they will be talking more about Javonte Williams and who to pick up with him being gone. Interesting scenarios there in Denver. They were already in trouble anyway, and losing. I mean, the sad thing about that with Javonte Williams to me, he could have been turning into one of the better running backs in the NFL. Now we're not going to find out this year, at least. All right, guys, it's been fun. We will talk to you. We'll be all be together again Thursday. Zach Ewing will be back where he's supposed to be, and hopefully he won't be wearing a Mariners cap, and we can I can actually look at him again. But we'll figure that out.
I'll be wearing Mariners stuff all weekend, man.
Okay, well, maybe I'll put on a
I'll have to break out the this.
Oh God, I'm sick. I think I'm going to be sick Thursday. So you boys enjoy. All right, that is going to wrap it up. You guys have a great week. Everybody have a great week. NFL picks coming out on Thursday. We're already looking ahead. Saints, Seahawks, LSU, Tennessee. We're going to have fun with it. It's all coming up on Bayou Bets. We'll talk to you on Thursday.